ahead.
My name is Jay Mindlin. We are former members of Hope Lutheran, Pompano Beach, which has now become part of Shepherd of the Coast with the present members that we now have.
Yes, and my name is Wanda Mindlin. We were members for several years. We first started there when our son Patrick went to school, and Pastor Hoyer was pastor then at that time. Through the school, programs, we became involved with Hope. It was such a loving church, and Pastor Hoyer was so loving, and Jay was Jewish, and he was so accepting. And during that time, Jay had become baptized, and we went from there.
I forgot I was also treasurer of Hope.
We served on the board, both of us. I was on the school board. Jay was on the treasurer. Then I was with Bert. I was assistant youth leader until we merged. We have very fond memories of Hope. It was such a loving, caring church. At the back, we greeted the visitors. Everybody felt welcome. Well, I remember the youth group. We had such a great group of people. The first leader was Lynn Hannon, at that time Hannon, and we would go to Disney on this rickety old bus that had no air conditioning. We went to the Night of Joy, and the kids had so much fun. And then later with Bert. But I remember that old rickety bus, and we didn't care because we were together having fun. And then we had, I remember the dinners we had, the Thanksgiving dinner we had for everybody, because we had a lot of older people that didn't have any place to go. So on Thanksgiving, we made a big dinner, and they were so appreciative. There are so many memories that I can't even think of. That's it, I guess.
Yeah, so I first started with Peace Lutheran. So a little bit of backstory. My mom married my stepdad in 1991, in July of 91. And so we moved down to Florida and found Peace Lutheran pretty much right as soon as we got down here. We were go to church every Sunday, kind of a family back in North Dakota, and wanted to continue that. And so my mom and I started attending Peace Lutheran in the late summer of 1991. It was, from what I remember, I was 6 at the time. So from what I recall, it was gigantic. We came from a very small little map dot town in North Dakota, where I don't know how many people were at the church that we attended, but it was, I think you could fit 2 of them inside of the building at the time for Peace. And so I just remember being a 6-year-old. I remember it was giant. The stained glass was impressive, and everything was blue, much like my shirt. Everything was blue inside the church, which I was not expecting, but I remember that, and I remember the organ. The organ was the pipes. You could see the pipes up at the front, and it was a really impressive sight, because I had never seen anything like that. The pipes may have inspired me to be in music. I got my drum kit in 1998, and I remember was pretty active at the time with the youth group at Peace Lutheran. And I remember sitting in the office during one of these, after school kind of deals or whatever we were there for. And Nate McAvoy, who was the son-in-law of the pastor at the time, he had said, I want to kind of start this little youth band, and I play guitar and I sing, and I'm just, looking for other guys to drum or do something. And I was like, I played the drums. And all of a sudden it was, just kind of connected and started playing really at the church which kind of made me fall in love with it even more. I think because it was just something to kind of do and something cool to exhibit those musical whatever the nurturing that was going on there. So it was a lot of fun. That was probably the biggest one, if you could consider that a ministry. That was probably the biggest one that I was involved with, was just being there every Sunday. And for a while, we've had different music directors over the years. My initial kind of memories of that were starting with Nate and Robin McAvoy. That was in the late 90s, very early 2000s. And then I went away to college. So I was back occasionally and would play sometimes, but then we went through a few different music directors, and some were very serious, where we would have midweek rehearsals, and we would have either an hour before service so we could get everything prepared and kind of run through things. And then others, it was just kind of, we were going to go in and rehearse right there on the spot and play in the next few minutes. And so from a ministry perspective, that certainly has been kind of the highlight for me. But I've also, I don't know if you can call it a ministry, but being in the youth group, and that used to be pretty significant at Peace Lutheran. And before we combined with Grace, we actually did some lock-ins with Grace and their youth group. So I mean, again, being a young kid and kind of seeing a lot of people, you see 10 people, and at that age, you probably think it's like 200, because it's just bigger than you. But we had a pretty significant youth gathering, and would go to youth gatherings as well. I remember going to Cocoa Beach for a youth gathering with Nate and with Robin and probably, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 other kids, and going and doing worship up there out of a hotel conference room with other youth groups from all over the state. We did that a few times, and that was really cool. I was never really sure what to expect with things like that, but I really enjoyed those times. I am still, I wouldn't say friends, but people move on, they move away, but I certainly see people, some of which their families now go to one of the other services, or their kids may interact with the school. And so I see them periodically, and it's kind of fun to think back to, hey, 20 or 25 years ago, we were in a youth group together. So there certainly is some of those connections, but as Florida's a pretty transient place, people come in and then they go out to the rest of the world. So couple familiar faces though, for sure. Well, some of the pastors, I remember I came in with Pastor Flores, and he was here for a period of time. He was the one who confirmed me, and kind of, again, prior to I guess us becoming Shepherd of the Coast, he was really my first memory of a pastor here at the church. Then it went on to Dan Chapleski, who was my wife and I's kind of marriage counselor, and before we got married, to do all those sort of things, the premarital work. He baptized Ava, which was our first daughter, and he also married us, obviously. So there's always been kind of a connection there with Pastor Dan. And then Pastor Glick, which was kind of in between Pastor Dan and Pastor Stephen. I really enjoyed Pastor Glick, even though he was only here for a short period of time. You could just tell that he was really moved by some of the things. I always have interesting memories of Pastor Dan and Pastor Glick specifically being very emotional guys, and they would tell a story during a sermon, and they would both physically get choked up about talking about something that was, whether it was a sad memory or a happy memory, they would get choked up. And that emotion, I think you need to have that. I mean, there's certain things about having a strong, don't show emotion kind of a pastor, but you're also, you want to connect. And there was plenty of times where you look around the congregation when one of these stories was being told, and there'd be other people wiping their eyes too, because it's a powerful thing, especially when you can hear some of God's work or a miracle or something like that that they're talking about. You can relate to that, and that was always very powerful to me. But after Glick was Stephen, and I think Stephen Stephen was the right pastor for our church at the right time, and I'm saying that just from my own lens. But young guy came in full of energy, full of ideas, and certainly was kind of a galvanizing force, and really I think ushered in some really great things, and now we're on to the next new one. Certainly. So, as far as significant events in my life that kind of intersected with the church, being six when I got in there, being there, fairly regularly, especially early on. Hurricane Andrew, my first hurricane was 92. We had been Floridians, if you can call us that, for about 12 months at that point. So that was kind of scary. We went to Orlando and took refuge there, came back, and church was still standing, and we were there the next Sunday. But all through my life, every major milestone event, whether it's been good or bad, the church has always been there. And so whether it was September 11th, I was a junior in high school at the time over at Cardinal Gibbons, watching that horrific day, which, unbelievable that tomorrow will be the 18th anniversary, 19th anniversary of that. That there was obviously a kind of a galvanizing force around the country with faith, and bringing people back into the church after that. But aside from world events, me personally, I remember bringing my now wife, at the time girlfriend, when we were playing drums in the church. Her and her friends, they'd come and we'd be riding around in my Jeep, and I'd have to go to practice or rehearsal, and so she'd be in there even while we were in high school together. And then obviously going through the whole process of all the religious rites for myself, both of our children being baptized there, Pastor Dan coming over to Holy Cross to see Ava when she was a day old, Pastor Stephen coming over to our house after Elle was born, a few days after we got home from the hospital, and then obviously Pastor Dan marrying us. Our as funny as it's said, it's that saying that you never leave more than 20 minutes from where you grow up. I left here to go to Tallahassee for school, and then we moved to Chicago together, ended up back here, and now I live, closer than I ever have to the same building that's been part of my life since 1991. It's kind of remarkable. So when the merger happened in '04, I was a sophomore in college. So I was in Tallahassee. I was attending the University Lutheran Church up there. So I don't remember a ton about that time. I do remember my mom saying, "Hey, yeah, Hope is joining with us and Grace is joining with us." And I really wasn't quite understanding what all of that meant. I didn't know, if they were literally just joining us for a couple services, and if they were going to go back to their buildings, or if this was going to be something that was going to be longer term. Until I got back home from, I think, one of the breaks, and realized that, wow, we've grown in size, because we're now 3-in-1 kind of a deal. So that part I can't speak too intelligently to, just because I wasn't physically here. But from what I remember, I was excited to see more people, because again, growing up in a small town in North Dakota where every Sunday you're there. You're at church and you're doing potlucks, and everything kind of centers around that environment, at least for half of the day on Sunday. It was cool to see that kind of coming back in at that volume back in the early 2000s. Yes, there are plenty of things when I think back to food and coffee and fellowship that I remember back to. So where the sanctuary ends today on the west wall, behind that was, again, being 6 years old or 7, however I was at the time, there was a room that opened up there, and it was, to me, it was as big as my school cafeteria. It was gigantic. And I remember after every service that we would attend, we would go walk next door, and there was what seemed like an endless supply of coffee cakes and pies and coffee and orange juice. And even though I was young, my grandmother got me going on coffee when I was 3 years old. So drinking black coffee since I was 3, and I loved that. I loved being around people that of all the same beliefs. And of course, it wasn't always just talk about God or about what the message was, but I feel like when I leave church, I feel good about the week ahead. I'm excited to get out there. I'm excited to, my wife always jokes because she doesn't always attend with me. Sometimes she's down in Miami visiting her grandmother, but she'll see me after church. She's like, "You're always in the best mood after you leave church," and I think that's all been kind of part of that. But I remember at those fellowship meetings, or coffee fellowship is what we used to call it, leaving there and just feeling, just maybe it was the sugar or the caffeine or a combination of both, but you just feel so energized coming out of there, because you really do feel like it's a community, and it's kind of a subset of your family when you walk out of there. And there's just a lot of great examples of that, but that's one that sticks out for me for sure. I think from a go forward perspective, and just things that I remember, I remember in '91 when that building, again, grand and big and all that, where the Family Life Center is now, or the gym, that was just an open parking lot. Blacktop, a couple basketball hoops where everybody used to actually park before they walked into the sanctuary, and it's really is just amazing to see the evolution of things, as that building has always stood there. The fire department has flip-flopped. It used to be on the west side in the parking lot, and now it's over on the east side, and a little bit bigger. But just to see the evolution of that space, and see how the school has continued to do what it does and administer a great Christian education, and see how we've kind of evolved with the times too, right? I mean, you can't do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So the incorporation of a more modern service, right? Where there's what we have today with the round tables and the music and all that. I just think it's a great testament to the forward thinking about how are we going to adopt our faith and adopt what we do in that building, to really reach out to the community and continue to grow this, and not just grow it for the church, but grow it for the faith, and try to bring more people to know and understand who Jesus was, and what that means to everybody that attends those services every Sunday morning. So, it's funny to think back that when you think, I'm only 35. And so when you think back on like one of the biggest constants in my life to this point, I mean, 31 of those years almost has been at that church. So it's pretty remarkable when you think about that, considering the schools you go through and the friends you meet. The one constant has always been that building, and a lot of the people that have been there. So that's it.
We moved here in 1991, and I guess I just happened across Peace because I was driving by it and I saw it was a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and it was in my area where I lived, and I just looked it up, I guess at that time in the yellow pages. Probably there was no internet back then, at least I didn't have any, and so then I went to one of the first services, and I just knew it was a good church, a good feeling for me. I had Mark. He was 6, and my husband is not Lutheran. He's Catholic, but he attended with me once in a while. But he attended with me more later on, I guess, after we had our second round of children, I guess. So Mark attended with me initially for the first, quite a few years. I guess what I liked about Peace was that it was like, reminded me of, I came from a really small town in North Dakota. My congregation was in a town of 81 people. So it was a small enough congregation that it made me feel at home. It made me feel welcomed, and I just felt very comfortable there. And a lot of the people there, I think, were from the upper Midwest, so they had a good feeling with them, because it was a bit of a culture shock to move from North Dakota to Florida. And so I guess my fondest memories were just that, most of my memories are probably from more recently with Shepherd, but with Peace, it was just, I just felt really comfortable there. Pastor Flores was probably the pastor that I remember the most and that I really felt connected with. He was just amazing. He was amazing with the youth group, And with Mark at the time, Mark joined the praise team band when he was really young, because Pastor Flores had his daughter and son-in-law who had, were involved with the band. And then after Pastor Flores left, then Pastor Dan came, and Pastor Dan was there for a long time and baptized my kids, baptized my first granddaughter, and actually performed the wedding ceremony for Mark and Christina. So those are the two pastors that I really felt connected with, and I love Pastor Reynolds too. It's just I just think the other two were I developed more of a bond with. Some of them left, I guess, either moved or went to a different church. But for the most part, most of the people that I am more connected with right now was after Shepherd of the Coast was formed. It was the people that I was with more with that piece have, like I said, they've left, and I haven't really kept in touch with them. I didn't really get involved in a lot of ministries at Peace. It was mostly when, the homeless feeding, but I think that was more with Shepherd of the Coast as well. Truth be told, I wasn't really involved a whole lot with Peace. I was involved more later on, but I still have, fond memories of being at Peace and the changes that went with the merges with the other churches and bringing in new people. I just remember them sending out the different choices. I couldn't remember all the choices, but I do remember Shepherd of the Coast was the one I had picked for my choice. And I know I was happy to hear about the merge because I thought it would bring more, people into the church. And I do remember hearing some comments, about people coming from Grace, weren't sure how they were going to fit in and if how they were going to feel. But overall, I felt it was a really good thing for the churches to do. I remember 9/11, and that was, I just remember a special service. Pastor Dan had a special service. I don't remember exactly if it was a couple days after 9/11 or whatever, but it was during the day. I remember it was like in the morning, because I remember I took Tommy with, and he was only like 6 months old at the time. And I just remember feeling, and there was a lot of people there, and it just was a great feeling for the community to come together. And it's just one of those services that I will always remember. I just think that Peace Lutheran, like I said, it just felt like home for me, and it just there was a community of people there that I felt I really formed a bond with, and with Mark getting involved with the praise team, and then Pastor Dan had the youth group. He had a lot of different things for the youth group, and then unfortunately when he left, Pastor Glick came in and took over, for Tommy got confirmed with Pastor Glick. And it's sad to say that over the years there's been there's not a lot of kids there, and that's been really difficult for me now, especially as a grandmother. I would like to see more young kids involved in Sunday school, and I guess that probably doesn't answer your question about how did it influence me, but I really, really felt that Peace was a good fit for me and for my family, and I couldn't have been happier there. I just, we've been involved more with the homeless feedings with my younger boys and I when they were, getting confirmed and stuff like that. And that's what I'm missing that right now. I'm really missing that community of coming together, once a month to help feed the homeless. And I'm really looking forward to getting back to doing that with the church.
Tom Crippen, my wife Carolyn, and I joined Hope Lutheran Church in Pompano Beach in 2001. We came down in the late 90s as snowbirds and found out that we lived just 0.8 of a mile from Hope Lutheran. So we visited when we was here a week or two at a time, came back and moved in 2001 and joined the church. Since then, I have been privileged to be involved in the running of that church and on committees, etc. We, as a committee that I was on, we had to decide what we was going to do with the church because we couldn't sustain it anymore. And it was really some sad times having to close down an institution of any kind, especially when you had so many friends and it was so important to people that the church and school go on. But thank God, as things work out, other people had the same problem. So that's a good deal and that's a bad deal. But at least we got to join another church that had the same problem, and now we're a bigger and better organization than we were separately. And I've still got a lot of good friends that I met here, and am very happy. Thank God that we are together, which, like I say, maybe a bad thing turns out to be a good thing, if that's possible.
How did you first find Hope Lutheran Church, and when did you start attending?
Well, I was new in the area, and I always belonged to an organization. So I looked and I pick up the phone and I call operator, say, operator, I give him my address. What is the nearest Lutheran church I could find? Well, he gave me one from university, gave me Hope, and someone somewhere the east, I think was Shepherd of the Coast. But I said, which is the closest one? He said, well, he gave me a little distance, but I said, I think I would like to visit Hope. So he gave me the direction how to get to Hope. So I got there. The very first time I got there, oh my God, these people were so amazing. Like, I can't tell you. They were so amazing, and from that day on, they all was a group, a couple, and I was the only single one. They will pick me up, take me for breakfast every Sunday morning. So I'll take my card to pay. So they will say, no, put that away back. So I'll put it away back, but I tried to sneak it. It didn't work. So went home and I said, I was talking, hear my boss, they're gonna call you free, Lord, don't do that. I said, well, I tried, but I couldn't beat them. So now, one day, what I did, I took my card, and when the waitress come, I just walk and say, okay, this is my card. I'll pay for the group here today. So she said, all right. So after breakfast, everyone sitting waiting. They're waiting for the check to come. There is no check. So about 45 minutes they sit. So they're chatting, and I'm not saying nothing. The waitress isn't coming. So they keep chatting. So one of them said, wait, we sit here this long, and where is our check? So I sat down there smiling. So when he get up and he going to the cashier. So I said, okay, that's it. I take care of it. They said, what? You should have not done that. I say, oh, you all did it every week. So it's time for me to do something.
So it sounds like you have some really fond memories of the people you were at Hope with.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us about some of your pastors when you were at Hope?
Oh, I could I was trying to remember I was to call Joyce Gehring. She have a good memory.
Okay.
I was to call her and ask her who was the pastor, was there, the name of the pastor. I know them, but I can't place the name. I remember the face. But Pastor Matlock was there for a little bit. The one from Germany was there for a little bit until we get the real minister. And he was very nice. He was a thin, tall guy, not too tall. Was very, very nice.
Were there any ministries you were involved in when you were there?
Well, yes, we was a group, and the ladies we would meet once a week, and I joined them there, and then I should bring the book. All of them sign their name on the book on each page, and they give it to me.
What kind of things did the ladies group do?
Like like naturally, like the Women's League, like what we have here.
Yeah. Very good.
Talk about different, things.
Are you still in touch with some of the people you went to Hope with?
Say that?
Are you still in touch? Are you still in contact
Well,
with some of the people?
The only one is Joyce Gehring. She and I used to do the altar. Then myself and Joyce Gardiosi was doing it. Then eventually I left doing it. But what I was afraid of, I don't like to go there all by myself first thing in the morning. So what I'll do, go and set it up, put it in the linen and cover it and put it in the refrigerator. This way it don't get tarnished.
Good.
Next morning I just take it out, put it on the altar, and that's it.
Very good. So did anything happen in your life that was really significant while you were at Hope that you remember it was important to be at Hope for?
Well, that was the closest church to me. And I did not need to look for another church.
So do you remember when Hope was going to join Shepherd of the Coast?
Yes, I remember, I think is 04.
it might have been-
Shepherd of the Coast rebuilt,
I think it might have been a couple years later, but do you remember the decision at Hope to join Shepherd of the Coast? Was it a hard decision?
No. When Shepherd of the Coast decide they will sell, so we all have to find some place to go. So I think I came here and she was saying, this is a very nice organization here. And here I'm coming now. So I said, okay. And I start come here. Pastor Dan was here. Oh, he was such a lovely pastor too. And he was here and then he got transferred and I'm still here. They build the church, they complete, and I'm still here enjoying it.
And did you remember anything about coming to Shepherd of the Coast at the time when you were coming from Hope? And did a lot of people from Hope come to Shepherd of the Coast at the same time?
Well, to be honest, there was a lot of snowbirds. I think they came here too. Yes, the majority I know came here. And
did your family come with you? Was your family
well,
attending with you?
whenever they come visit.
Yeah.
So my son, I can tell you this, my son called me last night or yesterday evening. So I said, you know what? They're living in Coral Springs, he and his family. I said, tomorrow, Sunday, I'll be at church 9 o'clock. I would like to see you all there. So, anyway, he didn't say anything. So I know he wouldn't come. He's a very shy guy. But he was here already. He spent 6 months with me sometime in 05 or somewhere around there. Spent 6 months with me, and every Sunday he used to come to church. That is when he was with me.
So, how has God worked through you?
How was what?
How has God worked through you during your time at Hope? Like, how did God inspire you or touch your life?
I can't. I find myself so smoothly. I cannot believe it. And you know, this sad thing that happened to me over there, the sad thing happened. The people are very nice. So there is no need to say, well, I have to find another church. No need for that.
Okay. And what is the secret to your friendliness? You are so friendly. What is the secret to that?
Well, I don't know. That is my nature. I'm born like that.
Okay, great. Is there anything else you want to tell us about your time at Hope?
About what?
About your time at Hope Lutheran. Anything else you want to tell us?
My time? Oh, yes. And I was living with a family. He was Catholic and she was Jewish. So whenever we have any special event, I will say, we have so and so. Then he gonna say, okay, Beauty have an event to go. We all going with her. And we all will go and everybody will have a nice time. And sometimes he even go with me to the service.
First one, how did I first find Shepherd of the Coast? That was easy. I was passing by Commercial Boulevard and I saw the sign, Peace Lutheran Church and School. And I stopped and talked to the principal, Mr. Seshorn. And I asked him, is this church for Lutherans only? He said, no, for everybody who wants to learn about the Word of God. So, wow, I said to myself, it sounds so good. But my daughter started going to that school, but until she started going to Sunday school, I used to drop her on my PJs and pick it up after the service. So one day I said, I wonder what are they teaching to her. So I got dressed and off to church I went. I got impressed because a lot of the stuff sounds like, looks like the Catholic Church. But I didn't know anything about Lutheran Church, religion, or not even from Martin Luther. So back in 1988, my Christian life started. What are your fondest memories of your time as Shepherd of the Coast? Well, with Pastor Berman, we have a huge youth group led by Mr. and Mrs. Bill Bailey. My daughter had such a wonderful time with them, and then also I remember Mrs. Dora Restrepo, which was the aftercare teacher with her arts and craft classes. It make my life and my daughter's easier. Also, I start learning my ABCs about the Bible through the Sunday school with Mrs. Johnson, because I joined and I become a kindergarten Bible teacher, and so together with the kids I start learning about the Bible. And I here for the first time singing a Mr. Muller, and Mrs. Muller introduced me to the world of the thrift shop back in those years. What ministries are you involved in a Shepherd of the Coast? One is the feeding of the homeless with Paul Gayus and Donna Carlon. I love to help them to cook. They are such hard workers in their mission. Also, like Lydia Fellowship, which I work with them because they help me with my mission in Peru, and it's a way for me to say thanks to them. Also, the LWML, which my mission to help the children of the Andes of Peru was through Pastor Don Shelp, who allowed me to do this mission through the LWML, and also with Roberta Murphy, who filled up most of the paperwork and for me to win twice $5,000 for my mission. A big thanks to Mr. and Mrs. Diana Ann, Mr. and Mrs. Larry Annis for all the help they give me all the time, and for Caroline Ashinson, who helped me always to sell my arts and crafts to get the money for the children. I also love to remember our troops. It's a mission that I do with all my heart. I've seen videos of kids while hugging their parents after they come back from wherever they were, and it got really bad in my heart. Coffee fellowship. I love to come early in the church to start making the coffee, and hear Phil saying to me, "Happy Sunday, Irma." That's really nice to start the day, right? And then somebody says, "Oh, it smells good. The coffee smells so good." And through all these years, it's starting from Peace Lutheran, I started learning how to bake American goodies to please my members of this church. What does Shepherd of the Coast mean to you, and how does it influence you? Well, it's my Christian home. Everything turns around me, around the church now. My life is different. I got such a wonderful people as friends, and I trust them so much. They always were close to me, so I love them all. How does God work through you as Shepherd of the Coast? Well, He knew when He brought me to this country, He knew what it was going to be my role in this world. And He teach me how to give and not to wait in return for something. He knew that I was going to learn about Him in this church. It's such a amazing life that I am now coming to this church. Well, has something significant happened in your life or in the neighborhood world while you have been a Shepherd of the Coast? Yes, I start my mission, which is very important for me, through the LWML, and thanks to Pastor Dan Chapelsky, and also because I have medical issues that for a few months I didn't want to know anything about anybody, not even the church, but the member fellowship, the fellowship members never give up on me. And they even sent me the police to find out how I was doing, which I thank them all with all my heart. I'm really happy to be a member of Shepherd of the Coast. Thank you all.
Hi, my name is Allison Williams, and I am the 6th grade homeroom teacher and literature teacher for middle school here at Shepherd of the Coast Lutheran in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I first learned about Peace Lutheran and the church through my mom. She was a member, and then once I was born, she had me baptized. Shortly after my baptism, I was enrolled in the pre-K program. and we just had such a great experience and loved the community here at Peace that I stayed from pre-K through 8th grade graduation. We had 3 pastors while I was attending Peace Lutheran. We had Pastor Flores while I was in elementary school, Pastor Dan while I was in middle school, and then when I came back from college, we had Pastor Reynolds. I would say that my pastor would be Pastor Flores. What he did that really united the church was his family was very involved in the ministry. His wife led Sunday school, and his son-in-law was a musician who would help us with hosting concerts, going to Christian concerts, doing fundraisers, and led more of like a middle school youth. In fact, one of the awesome benefits to attending Peace Lutheran and having such a small class size is that all of us today are even still in contact through outlets like social media. Most of us went to kindergarten and stayed all the way through 8th grade, and it's awesome to see how well they're doing with their families and their careers today.
So tell me, how did you first find Grace Lutheran Church, and when did you start going to Grace?
We started going to Grace in 1990. I first found, the question is, how did I start going to Grace? How do I find out about Grace? We saw a pink sign on 13th Avenue that said it was an actual advertisement for the Learning Center. And we had a 2-year-old at the time, and we were looking for a church. We both had been raised in the church and felt we needed to begin going to church again since we had a family. So we contacted, it was Mimi Gear that was the Learning Center director, and we ended up, we didn't join the church till years later, but we were involved with Grace because of the Learning Center, because of our toddler child.
What are your fondest memories of your time at Grace?
The fondest memories, one of the fondest memories of my time at Grace, one of the sweetest memories is Mim Gilzo writing me a handwritten note to join the Dorcas Guild. And I was new, and I was a new mother. I didn't know really anyone at Grace. We were basically unknown. Nobody invited us to join the church as friends, so we were getting to know everyone. And she sent me a handwritten note to join the Dorcas Guild, and that was the sweetest thing. I remember being personally invited to join.
Were there any ministries you were involved in at Grace?
Were there any ministries that I was involved in at Grace? I was a Sunday school teacher, and I was involved on the Learning Center board. Once we joined the church, I was involved on the Learning Center board there. I was in Altar Guild. We did Stephen's ministry. I think that's all. I think that's everything that I was involved in there. We were also involved on the mission team for the merger for the 2 churches, Peace and Grace. When I was at Grace, did my family attend with me? Yes, we attended as a family. My boy was, he was at the Learning Center and went to kindergarten at Grace until he was in the kindergarten. And then my daughter was born, and so she was baptized at Grace by Pastor Bielenberg. And then we became members. The same day that she was baptized, we became members. We were the first pastor. Who were the pastors at Grace? First pastor was Pastor Bielenberg, and the second pastor was Pastor George Earhart. So Pastor Bielenberg baptized my daughter, and then he retired shortly thereafter. And then we called Pastor Earhart, and I was on the call committee for that. So we called Pastor Earhart after that. I loved Pastor Bielen. Did I have a favorite pastor, or who was my pastor? Pastor Bielenberg was certainly a sweet man. Like I say, he baptized my child into the kingdom of God. I could never forget him for that. But Pastor George is kind of where I learned about my prayer life. And kind of when Pastor George was at Grace, he was kind of really who taught me why it was so important that my parents took me to church. So I really learned a lot under him. You know, was there something significant that happened in my life when we were attending Grace? I would say the thing that was significant for me was when my son, I learned so much from Pastor George, and it was really where my Christian, my relationship with Jesus Christ really took shape. But it was when my son was a teenager, and I realized it might not be myself that brings my son to Jesus, that my prayer life was really taught to me how I really needed to trust God, and that it might not be me that brings my children to faith. And so that